And here's our render. Looks like it's super shiny and kind of looks like broken up pieces of chocolate. And that is mostly because I'm pretty sure we forgot to put the material on this guy here. And we did. So let's do that now. The material shader should actually go here, and let's try that again. But this will be good because we'll be able to compare and see how much better it's going to look with the actual material, namely without all this reflectivity. All right, it's definitely a lot rougher now. We don't have all this shininess here, but it's also, we're getting a lot more diffuse sunlight on it. It's making it a little harder to see the underlying colors that we have here. So I want to say, let's go back into the fracture area here. Let's go up to our applied texture business, and let's make this even more extreme. Let's say like half as much brightness here, and maybe this has even more brightness here, and then maybe this can be a lot warmer here in the middle. You could play around with this and find what works for you. That's going to be fine for now, I think. And we'll have to cache that by coming back over to the output area. Of course, we're still seeing the old cache here now because it's being pulled in by this file cache stop. So let's take a moment and maybe make this into a new one. It'll error because it doesn't exist. And let's save out that new version. Okay, and we're back. And now we have our new, even brighter version, or more contrast version, I should say. Let's reload for good luck. And let's see, what else can we do? Let us go back to the shader and turn on bump mapping. Oh, there it goes. Come over here, fly to actually displacement. So we have a bump and normals thing here, but this is actually for more like a 2D bump map texture applied via UVs to the outside of this thing. And what I want to do is, let's just go over to displacement actually and say, let's use a noise displacement, but actually not do real displacement. So turn off true displacements, which means it's going to go through the same model of figuring out more or less what it looks like. I'm going to do alligator noise because remember, I like these peaks and valleys look. It's going to determine the normals of what it would have been if it was displaced, but instead just not actually move the geometry around. Now the scale of the scene is so big that we know the frequency of 10 is going to be too high. 1 might even be too high. But let's start with 1 instead of 10. Remember, true displacements is off. And let's see what this alligator noise gets us. Okay, so a big improvement from our previous version, which was a big improvement from this. You can see we're on our way. So what else can we do? I like the warmer colors. That definitely seems to have made this look more appealing. The normal mapping is really adding quite a bit of detail, which is cool. It's probably could have even like half the frequency though. Right now I feel like there's too many regular small bits. Maybe half the frequency. Maybe we'll even make it like more pronounced by upping the amplitude here. And because we're lowering the frequency, we may want to compensate by adding a little bit more turbulence, which will add smaller features. So as we make essentially the size of it bigger by lowering the frequency, we might want to have more internal features. Let's just take a look before we even push this any further. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, and here we are with the lower frequency and the higher amplitude on that. And yeah, another good improvement. And now instead of having lots of little small ones, now we have a kind of a mixture of big and small. And actually, if we want to put a few more smalls back in there, you could increase the turbulence even more. But this is pretty good. It's certainly come a long way. Now, I would say looking at this, it's still kind of pale though. We are reflecting a lot of light back at us, even though we put the roughness all the way up to 1. So if we come back over here to surface, we might want to lower the reflectivity here a bit. Let's say, so we can't go below 1 here. So really think of this as going from 1 to 1.5 right now. So halfway between those two will be 1.25. Let's try that. Okay, and here's our new one. So you can see it's less reflective. Not reflective in the sense of like a shiny reflectiveness, but this is still reflecting light. The sunlight that we made earlier. So that's done now. And just a couple more things, and then we'll probably be just about done. We have to turn on the geometry velocity blur, even though we turned it on in on our Mantra shader. So let's switch over to that high quality render and just do one frame and see what that looks like. Cool, so here we go. We got our motion blur in here now. If I go into alpha with A, we can see it blurring here. Now it's not moving that fast relative to the camera, so it's hard to see that well. But it's there, we'll see it better in the animation. We also have less graininess here in the middle, as we can see, because we put the pixel samples up to 6 in the high-res mode. What else can we do? What other little things can we do? I don't want to do displacement this time in this lesson because it's going to add a lot of memory. Like a scene like this could easily take 25 gigs of memory if we just do a naive approach to just putting displacement everywhere. A lot of CPU time, a lot of memory. I hope in a future lesson, when we're talking about particles and smoke and stuff on top of this, that will also cover displacement. But especially with all that extra stuff, you won't even see displacement that much. It already looks pretty good with the normals, or with the bump mapping. What's easier stuff we can do to make this look better? Well, I would say the sunlight could probably be doubled to get some more contrast in. Right now, it just seems like still seems a little flat. We could put the diffuse limit up on the. We'll do it in the HQ mode here. We'll go over to the rendering tabs, limits, diffuse limit to 1. That's going to be the secondary bounce. It's basically a global illumination looking thing. So we'll get some extra light, especially now that we're upping the brightness of the sun. Hopefully in some of these darker areas we'll see like a little bit of bounce, and that'll look cooler as things are moving around. We don't have any subsurface scattering, so I'm just going to turn that off. I mean, it shouldn't do anything anyway, but it'll just make me feel better knowing that it's off. I could even go higher technically if your computer can handle it. Go up to 9.9 maybe, or again, if you're sending this to something like Grid Markets to do a render farm kind of thing, then that'll be worth your while. It's also worth noting that here in my Rigids 4 project, the final pieces, like the actual high-res ones, are 250 megabytes for the one frame, for the single frame. If we had to save this out for every frame, that would be 250 times 100, which would be like 25 gigs. Instead, we just have to load the 250 megabytes one time and move it into the position of these tiny little files, which altogether is 82 megabytes, which is nothing. So it's 82 megs plus that original thing. So pretty cool. Yeah, so let's try the brighter light with the diffuse bouncing. Just put it into the HQ mode there to make sure we have that all on, and render. Alright, and there it is with the brighter light. That's where it was, that's where it is now. Yeah, looks nice with the brighter light. As far as the extra diffuse limit there, we can see it's slightly brighter in the shadowed areas, and that's kind of the whole point of it. It just kind of lightens the shadows because a little extra light's getting in there. I mean, it's not much, but it's subtle. But a lot of subtle effects combined to make things looking cool. So we can obviously do this to death, and lighters do as part of the job. But I'm gonna call it here and say, all right, we got it. We did what we came here to do. So let's just render a full frame range and review it, and then we'll be done. And this is why you test first. You test with a smaller resolution first before you submit your whole high-res thing. So we can see this thing that's called, we would call this swimming. I mean, let's just say that I did this on purpose because it's just as well that you see how to do it the wrong way, and so you remember why to do it the right way. So what am I talking about? Well, we have our bump mapping on here, right? Obviously, it looks fine at a single frame, like this. But, of course, it's moving through it. See how the hills and bumps and stuff are kind of just, like, look at this area here. I mean, the hill is staying in one place. Now, it's moving along the surface. We see it, like, moving slightly, but without belaboring the point, it should be fairly obvious that this is wrong. The reason why this is happening is that Mantra and its shaders, including the principled shader, is looking by default for a attribute called rest, the rest position. Close. If it can't find the rest position, it will fall back and just use the actual position. And that actual position is what's the lookup into the noise. So, you know,